Basketball fans, welcome back. So in the previous video, we've talked about Kenya versus Angola in the Afrobasket 2021 qualifiers. They played in the same group and they really whitewashed us at that time, but it was an even record of 1-1. So you had one win and one loss against them, but how we looked was not the greatest. But in this video, I'll be looking at Kenya versus Angola in terms of, with reference to the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. I know they did not play a game together, but just looking at the stats alongside Angola's stats alongside Kenya's stats, we can be able to understand like how things have evolved and changed. Because when I sit back and just look at how Kenya has been moving, especially when it comes to continental basketball after the Afrobasket, things have just been quite deplorable. To not even saying that it's just actually an understatement. But without further ado, let me just get into it. So Angola just ticked every single box, every single statistic. They own us on field goal percentage. 2-point field goals, you can see it's 46.6%. On 3-point field goals is 27.8. They shot better than us. And that's the same thing that plagued us in the Afrobasket. This go around in the FIBA World Cup qualifiers, based on the performance, you could see we were very poor. And even I covered it extensively in a previous video I made at the time when these games were happening. In the free throws, you could see both teams were struggling with 57% on our side and Angola 59%. On offensive rebounds, Angola just took it. They just knew what to do with their offensive rebounds. The defensive rebounds, we led that start, but it was just like we led that by like 0.3, so even 0.4. So you could see we were just tied at that, and that's the only start that we had an edge against them. But if you look at what we were doing, even with the defensive rebounds, it was just because their offense was not clicking and they missed some shots. But if you look at the defensive rebounds and offensive rebounds, you can see majority of the time the shots were not missing, they were going in, and we didn't know how to capitalize on offensive boards at that time, given the matchups we had. So we played against Senegal, we played against Congo DR, and we played against Egypt. So they pretty much owned us, and every game was lopsided. We lost 5 straight games on the court, and the walkover was given to us when we missed the Congo DR game. So yeah, it was actually pretty horrendous, and just dark times. 12 rebounds on rebounds, you can see Angola takes us apart. 15.8 assists, you can see 15.1 steals, 2.3 blocks. We only averaged 1 block against them statistically, or even on fast break points from the paint. They really own points in the paint, and that time they scored a lot of points in the paint, and they were just pretty good. They had a tight game against Cote d'Ivoire. It was a 1-point game, 56-57, and Angola were just on a serious tear. I've never seen a team go on a serious tear like that, because Angola, you can see 75-59 result against Guinea, marking their first win, and they were just on a winning streak. They beat Central African Republic by 30 points, 78-48. Then we have that game against Cote d'Ivoire. It was actually quite difficult because they lost this game by 2 points. So Angola versus Cote d'Ivoire was just like a derby, because both teams were just holding serve pretty well, and the game was dictated by the last final possession. But if you look at Angola versus Guinea, that game ended in a blowout. 85-65 was the final result. Then we have Angola versus Central African Republic. Angola really established that this team was an easy team to beat, and Angola just beat them 76-60. In the game against Uganda, it was just a walkthrough. I mean, they just didn't waste any time. 84-62 was the final result, and they won a ton of games. They won against Cape Verde, they won against Nigeria by 3 points, and the Cape Verde game was dictated by about 8 points. Yeah, it was an 8-point game. They blew out Uganda. They beat Cape Verde again, and Angola were just cruising, and they're just literally cruising at that time. And they won a ton of games, and they missed, and they only, most notably, I can say they only lost 2 games in that run. But if you look at Kenya, we lost 6 straight. So they played a lot of games, and the games that even they lost, you could see Angola lost a games against Cote d'Ivoire, and that's the only team that Angola couldn't beat. You see there they lost. It was dictated by the last final possession, and this is the same performance that they carried with them, even in the AfroCan. And looking at even statistically, there was no way, there was no single way that Kenya could be able to like take them on, even with like even coming after the Afrobasket. There was no way Kenya could be able to beat them even at that time. They were just on a mean streak. And you can see statistically they check every single box and they've had a lot of success in continental b-ball, while Kenya, we've just continued to regress a lot and our past performances are not the greatest. And honestly, if you ask me, there's no confidence even coming into this matchup because it's just going to be like a revenge. It's just going to be a revenge. That's the same thing I just stated even in the previous one, because even if you look at Group E, it's Angola, Tunisia, and Guinea. And statistically, we just can't be able to match up against them because we don't even have players that can be able to like provide an output in the game that can even translate to wins, because majority of the time team is hardly assembled. Even I made a video talking about the trials that they have, which I feel like they're just a PR stunt. And if you look at Angola, the way they have been rebuilding their team, you can see the majority of the players that even played in the Afrobasket run, it didn't even see them in the FIBA World Cup run a lot. They brought in a lot of young talent, and also brought in young talent at the far end when they knew that they're not gonna qualify for the FIBA World Cup. They brought in their younger players just to give them like a run in there. Something that Kenya can't do because cartels run KBF, and they just don't want to give that opportunity to guys that so that they can get the much needed exposure that they need. So statistically in this matchup, even if Kenya didn't meet Angola, it was just going to be a whitewash, just like any other that we have seen before, even in the Afrobasket 2021. So that's all I gotta say. But honestly, this matchup is just a one-sided thing. I don't think Kenya has the ability to beat Angola right now as currently constructed. Even I even don't even know the final team right now because the team keeps changing a lot. And when the team keeps changing, there's no like young player that's being recruited at the time, and you keep conducting tryouts every time. There's no consistency on the roster, and you don't even have not even like consistency. We don't even have good chemistry when it comes to like such contests. Because when I look at other nations, the way they are playing, you could see like there's somewhat of chemistry that has already been built for some time. But for Kenya, it's just plug and play. Our coaching staff is inadequate. Team managers are inadequate. Everyone is inadequate. The players cannot be set up in environments that can be able to enable their success. And it just leads to such, because Angola right now are just on that level. I'll even talk about like their statistics much later in this series, but given like this situation looks like, and also even in the group that they were in the FIBA World Cup qualifiers, they finished pretty respectable. They finished number 2 behind Cote d'Ivoire, and they had a 4-2 record in 6 games. The first 6 games they played, they won 4 games, lost 2 games, and they just put everything on the line. And even the games that they had after that, they were able to like hold stuff pretty well, and they didn't lose a single game, and they won every single game. They won against Nigeria, Uganda, Cape Verde. I mean, you name it. I mean, they just knew what they had to do. So yeah, I mean, if you guys like the video, make sure to leave your feedback down in the comments, down what you think, and I'm out. Peace.